So this is how you make a 6x9, so a standard postcard-sized graphic for a real estate listing. So whether you're a real estate agent or you have a client who is a real estate agent, this is how you do a simple graphic that looks very compelling. Start by creating a new document and size that to 9 wide by 6 high. All right, and this is your general canvas. So when I start by inputting in the listing picture. So here we just have a stock image. And so I basically always try to have the house in the middle and then text above and below it. So I use the rectangle tool to draw rectangles above and below. And I just duplicated that same layer. So this is really the basis of the graphic. So there's gonna be the basic call to action or headline up here. So this would most likely be like a just listed. I try to have this be a bold, professional but attention-grabbing font. So now I create a second layer and I put that underneath the top one, and I reduce the opacity a bit so it's appears transparent. And this is really where I put the address. And I try to make this a lighter font than the headline, and reduce the size of the text pretty significantly. And again, this is just the basics, and then once we have everything formatted, then I add the details and everything like that. So then I would add the agent's information. So I'm starting with here, adding his headshot. This is again just a stock photo. Moving that above this layer here. And then here I would add the agent's name and contact information, and here if the agent has a logo or the brokerage logo. So I have this just dummy logo here. And let's say the agent is working with EXP. So include this as well. The brokerage, of course, always being larger than the agent's logo. Cool. So here I just put some fake information for the contact. And similar to the contrast here in the type, I try to make this smaller than the name. Maybe making that heavy. Here I'm just playing around with the proportions. So this is really the basics. And now with colors, I try to use the color that the client already has. So if the client's logo is a certain color, or if they belong to a brokerage that has a certain color, I use that color as like the basis for the color palette. So if we are using EXP, we already have a pretty strong color palette of this blue and the orange. So I would create that palette with that same blue. Doing a color overlay for these to turn them everything white so it stands out. Now to add more detail, I like to include an outer glow to give some depth. Makes the graphic appear three-dimensional. So outer glow, change that to black so it appears like a normal shadow. Reduce the size, reduce the opacity a bit so it's subtle, but it's present and you can notice it. And I add that to basically every shape so it's consistent. All right. So this I can make a little bit smaller, I think. So playing around with the format a little bit, but this using, you know, we want to include some pops of color, so I think using this orange would be great, especially for something like the call to action. And so this is like a template, so it's, you know, subject to change, subject to play around, see what works best. Not every, you know, all pictures are different of listings, so you want to just be sure to work around things like that. This actually may look better. And now I'm gonna add a subtle orange outer glow to this so it stands out against the background. So it's very subtle, but you'll see it makes a big difference in how legible it is. Here we're gonna make a separation between these two items. And I'm gonna use these rulers to make sure that they are perfectly the same size, which it seems like they are. But I wanna make this rectangle to be the perfect size as well. And I'm going to use this distribution tool, make sure that they are perfectly distributed. So the size between the rectangle and this text is the exact same amount of size between the rectangle and this second text. And just placing that in the perfect center of the graphic. So everything is perfectly aligned. Here I can even add some flavor here before I move on to the next thing. So yeah, so now I like to add texture. So it's not just a solid color, solid blue. It's a kind of interesting dynamic texture. So I do that by importing, and I just find these online. It's like an abstract white background. And I import this, expand it a bit, and then what I do is I change the blend mode to multiply. So it's very, very, very subtle. I select that section and I just duplicate. So it's only just active in this section. And then I duplicate this layer maybe 2 or 3 times. And so you can see now there's this subtle hint of this shape. And it just makes it look a lot cooler, in my opinion. And so I'm gonna do the same thing for the top. Add it in. Make a selection of this section so it is only here. Change the blend mode to multiply, and then duplicate it a couple times to make it thicker. And now sometimes it may be even too thick or too noticeable, and it kind of takes away from the text. So what I like to do is, group all of these items together and add a subtle blue outer glow to these, so it again pops and contrasts against the texture. And I try to make this as least noticeable as possible. I think that looks good. I think this is a bit too intense. So I might even, yeah, I think that's good. Make this smaller so more of the house is visible. And here you could even do the same just so there's balance. What I'm doing is I'm duplicating this, clicking this layer here, the bottom one, changing it to be the same orange color, and then moving it up slightly. So there's just this like bar. And you could even reduce the opacity of this too, make it less intense. I'm gonna do the same thing for these logos here that I did above. I'm gonna add a subtle blue outer glow. And so again, it's barely noticeable, this outer glow, but the purpose of it is to just contrast against the intricate layer behind it. So yeah, so this is very basic, very templated, but that is how I create these types of graphics. I hope that helps. Please comment below if you have any questions or if you would like to see any future videos, or if you have any requests for future videos. But yeah, please hit the like and subscribe and stay tuned for more videos.